Welcome to today's Globe Observer Connect. We are so excited for this one. We have been waiting for this one for a very long time, and it's just thrilling to be able to talk about land cover and satellite comparisons. Um, just as a quick reminder, we are recording today's session for those who can't attend and who want to catch up later. So if you're uncomfortable being recorded, please keep your camera off and you can put your questions in the chat. So we'll have a short presentation about today's topic, and then we'll have a discussion at the end because this is a new feature, and uh, I'm sure you have plenty of questions about it. We'll have maybe a little bit more presentation time than normal. All right. So you may have noticed that we are now sending out emails that give you comparisons to your land cover observations with satellite data. So I said that poorly, but if you submit a land cover observation to Globe, whether through Globe Observer, through data entry, we will then take that observation and find satellite images and data that align with that observation and send it back to you, just as we do for clouds. We started to do this. We've been wanting to do this for a very, very, very long time. We know how much people enjoy getting the clouds emails. That it's very meaningful to a lot of people. And we also knew that land cover was another type of observation that would work well with that approach. So we've been working on this for a while. The land cover observations, they were always meant, Globe Land Cover was always meant to be a reference, provide reference data to scientists who were creating land cover maps based on satellite data. So it just makes a lot of sense to be able to match them with satellite data. Moreover, Globe started sending Landsat data to participants way back in the beginning. Early or mid 90s, they were sending Landsat data that aligned with schools' measurements on little CD discs. So, and that's a really fun story. So it's cool to be able to come back to the beginning and provide routine images to everybody. So land cover satellite emails will be going out on Wednesdays. So watch your inbox and for those. All right, next. Thank you. So the satellite data that we're matching to, or that we're providing to you, the first is MODIS, the MODIS Land Cover Classification Product. This is something that is produced once a year, and the way it is used or is done is they look at all the MODIS data collected for that year and classify the pixels generally, each little square generally, based on what they see is on the ground there. And this is a product, like I said, that is only produced once a year. It's the global product we had access to. If we have access to, MODIS is sort of aging, so if we have access to a more modern product, we will update it. But for now, this is the global product that we're matching to. And so you're going to see like a really pixely colored map showing what MODIS detected the land cover being at that location a year ago. Now, your data may be different because MODIS, like I said, is an annual product. Something may have changed. It's also getting that each little square there is 100 meters. And so your what you're measuring is a much smaller area, and so you may have some difference, particularly if, say, a park in a city, or I know there's a lot of different scenarios I can think of where the broader thing might be something different than what you're measuring on a smaller scale. Next. The other satellites that we're matching to are Landsat 8 and 9 and Sentinel-2 satellites. These we will be providing the nearest in time image. So whatever was most recently collected is what we'll send you. We also have inside the Globe Observer app, we've added these satellites, these series of satellites to the overpass predictor so that for your location, you can find out when Landsat one of the Landsats or one of the Sentinels will be flying overhead. And you can take a land cover observation at the same time so that it perfectly matches what you saw on the ground. This can be helpful for lots of reasons. One, it aligns your data directly with the satellite, so it's a more one-to-one match for scientists who are later going to use that and compare. But it also it gives you the same cloud conditions, right? So if it's really cloudy, you're showing what's on the ground underneath the clouds. The satellite, those particular satellites are not seeing. But if it's clear or there's cloud shadows, it's just providing a complementary perspective. So it's helpful to have that data collected at the same time that those satellites are overhead. It's helpful having data when they're not there too, so you know what's happening when they're not there. Oh, sorry, one more thing, and then I'm going to pass it on. To get to the land cover, to the satellite overpass predictor from land cover, there's a little satellite icon kind of in the center right of the control panel on the bottom. If you click on that, that will get you to the list of satellites, their flyovers. You can click set notifications to turn on your notifications, and you can decide when you want them. So we're looking for daytime images. Those nighttime overpasses aren't particularly useful to us, so you can just keep that off. All right, next. I'm going to hand it off, I think, to Marley.
Yes, hello everybody. It's so exciting to see you all. I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the development, but kudos to Tina Rogerson, who is in the meeting, because this is a lot of her work. So how did this came to be? Some of you all love to see kind of the behind the scenes. So this is a little glimpse behind the scenes. So Tina Rogerson led this development, but it was hugely supported by these two interns, Sid and Logan, and all their work as they collaborated with each other. So Sid started with the structure and the ideas, and then Logan's work was more on implementing it into the system and sending how to send all the emails out, not just manually, but through the system. So it was very sweet to see them talking to each other, even though they were not interns at the same time. They were able to collaborate together. So next slide, please. So a glimpse into the behind the scenes. So these are all the little tidbits that Tina Rogerson was excited to share with all of you. So the code is written in Python for those of you that are wanting to know. Python has been used more and more. So if you have any students or you're thinking of learning a new language, maybe Python would be a great language to start. The comparisons start at 5 a.m. Well, all of us are still, or most of us, I guess, are still in bed, and it starts working. So the first thing is the team that does the satellite comparisons. You know us more as Clouds. We are at NASA Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia. So through our systems, we go and pull from the globe systems to see your observations, because that's where they live. Then the code goes and determines the land cover type, which Holly spoke about just a little bit ago. And to look at that, you can go to the Earth Data website, the NASA Earth Data website, and look at those land cover observations. But we're looking for at your time and at your location. We also want to pull those images that are on the in the table. And so that goes into worldview, which some of you already know through our clouds observations. And so those are the steps of what it does. And like Holly said, it goes out on Wednesdays. Now there's a lot of cybersecurity. I feel like that's a catchword. And so we as a team work with many other groups within NASA. Particularly, our systems are within the ASDC, or NASA's Atmospheric Science Data Center here at NASA Langley Research Center. So we work with them and make sure through their system administrators that our systems are safe and patched frequently and patched correctly. There was a patch not too long ago. There's also work with NASA's Office of the Chief Information Officer, or OCIO. And those are kind of scary when they contact you, but what they want to keep is our system safe, because NASA is one of the systems that people are always constantly trying to hack, and that includes our systems as well. And I don't know if you knew, but there's somebody's job to try and hack our own systems. And so NASA hires contractors to test the systems, trying to break them. And so a little tidbit that Tina wanted to share is, since January, our system has banned over 1,300 IP addresses because they've been trying to access us. That's either through clouds or through LAN cover. So that's a little tidbit right there. Next slide, please. This is a quick look that has been developed for those NASA Response Mappers project or pilot project. For those of you in the United States, we're working with the NASA Disasters Response Coordination Office in what we're calling the NASA Response Mappers pilot. And if you're in one of the states that can experience a hurricane, they're asking for land cover observations. And what we've did for them is a quick look. So this is what the quick look looks like once you submit your observations and you are part of their team. It goes into here and it feeds it directly. So just know that your observations are being used by scientists. This is just one of the examples on how the data can be used. And remember, all the data is always available within the GLOBE systems or the GLOBE program, so you yourself can pull the data down and use it yourself. Next slide. So, your emails come out on Wednesdays. You might have just gotten an email. So let's walk through what you will find in the email. So the table will have three main parts, which I'm going to call the top, middle, and bottom. And so let's just briefly walk through. Let's do the top in the next slide. So in the top, you'll see the title. It'll say from NASA because it's your NASA personalized email. It says satellite comparison table, and right underneath there is a how-to that you can click on and always go back to if you have any questions. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. And then in the main section, this is one of my observations. There is the date and time, the location or latitude or longitude, the MUC or modified UNESCO classification for that location, the surface conditions, the field notes if I entered any or if you entered any, and then your photos and any classifications that you've put for the photos. To do that, there is an extra tutorial that you can do within the app. So that is your summary. If you keep scrolling in the middle portion, this is what Holly was referring to of the MODIS land cover type. So it is centered on your location. So you'll see that classification. You can click on the link and learn more. You'll see the range because now it's an area, not just a point. And then all the different land cover types that are within that box. And like she said, you're looking at an area that's even smaller than that. Also know that there's a lot of links under this section to learn more. And then let's go to the bottom portion. In the bottom portion, it's one of my favorite things. It's those photographs. So I love always in the clouds looking at your photographs, but also looking at those images from the satellites. So in this bottom portion is those images centered on your location. They could come from one of the Landsat and from one of the Sentinel satellites. And so you'll see date, the location, latitude and longitude. And if you click, it says view in NASA Worldview. You can click on it. And if you go to the next slide, it's my example. So I love going here, zooming in and zooming out. You see that I was close to one of the Air Force bases when I made this observation. There's a few clouds there. There's a lot of water. But within Worldview, there are layers that you can add, so you can also explore your own observations with other layers. And so this is a quick view of your table. We can't wait to receive your observations. I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Barbie Buckner because she's going to tell you how to find your observations. So Barbie.
All right. Thank you, Marilee. So I'm going to tell you about 3 different ways that you can find your satellite comparison tables. And Marilee just went over the 3 different sections of the table. So the first way is within the satellite comparison email. So that personalized NASA email that comes out every Wednesday. The second way that I'll show you is within your Globe app or within the Globe account. The third way is within the Globe Observer app. So next slide. So when that comparison personalized email comes out on Wednesday, you'll notice in the middle section there that it'll show your measurements. I've got it circled in red with a little green arrow. If you click on one of those, there were 2 measurements for this particular one taken, one at, let's see, it looks like 306 and the other at 315. But anyway, so if you click on whichever one of those, over to the right is a condensed view of the satellite comparison table. And again, Marilee talked about like the 3 different sections. And so while that's too small for you to actually zoom in and read, that is actually what you will get. Again, this is the first way using your email. If you'll click to the next slide. Now, you can also access your observations from the Globe account. So if you log into your Globe account and you click on your profile image and click on My Page, and then that'll bring up your image there to the right, as well as your name and then the description. But you'll see circled in red, My Observations. When you click on that My Observations, which is underneath your photo, it's going to open in a new page. Next slide. This is what it will show you. So it comes up such that in a new browser, and it asks you for your observations. What's the start date? What's the end date? Which observation type do you want to look at? And then it'll actually list your observations. Now, I will tell you that the start date by default is whatever today is. So if you want to change that start date, you're more than welcome to, but just know it's going to automatically be filled in for today's date. The end date is defaulted to 1 year ago. So if, this example here shows today's date, for the start date is actually, and I got this backwards. The start date is a year ago. The end date is today. Sorry, you can't go backwards a year or forward a year whenever you've not been there. Sorry about that. And then where it says choose an observation, that's where what's listed there is based upon what observations you have taken. If you've only taken a globe cloud measurement, then that's the only thing that's going to be showing there. You'll see here for this particular example, you can choose either clouds, mosquito, land cover, or tree height. But for air purposes today, it's to show you how to get to your land cover match. So we're going to select observer protocols and then land cover. And then once you select that, next slide, it will show you all of your land cover matches that meet that particular criteria that you set. So within that date range, the observation type, and as you scroll down, it's going to show you those matches or those observations. At the very bottom, if you'll notice they're circled in red, that row is satellite match. In particular, the name of our satellite is Landsat Sentinel. And when you click on that, it's going to open your satellite comparison table. Okay. Now, the third way to do this is within your Globe app. So within the Globe Observer app, you'll click on My Observations. Next slide. It's going to actually open a browser, and you'll see that this is very similar to what it looked like whenever you went to your Globe account. Okay, because that's actually bringing you to your Globe account to find it. So it's the exact same way. It's just whenever you go from your app, it's linking to Globe to open that within the browser. Same process, choose a start date and end date. It defaults from 1 year from today. Choose your observation. We're selecting land cover. When you do that, next slide. Same process. It's going to pop up and show you all the different observations that you've made. And note at the very bottom, it'll show satellite match, and you'll see the Landsat Sentinel for your land cover observations. All right. I think that concludes my part. I'm not sure who to hand that back to now. I think Holly.
I got it. Thank you.
Excellent.
So as you can tell, we're really excited about this. And so now we will open up for questions and discussion. Any questions or comments about land cover satellite match?
I think one thing to point out is that unlike the satellite matches comparisons for clouds, where in order to get a match for the low Earth orbiting satellites, or any of the satellites really, you have to be within 15 minutes. Although we have the overpass time in the app, and I think Holly mentioned this, but I think it's worth emphasizing that unlike clouds, where you only get a match if you're within 15 minutes, you can go do your observation within 15 minutes, but you will always get a match to Landsat and Sentinel because, land cover does not change as quickly as clouds. So while it can be useful, as was described, but you will still get a match even if you don't go into those notifications and look for the satellite flyovers.
Land cover protocol is not available as data entry. That's a great question. So it's a little confusing. In Globe Observer, if you have taken training, you can access if you've taken training and you apply and your country coordinator says that you are qualified, then you will be given data entry access to all of Globe. The Globe land cover protocol is a little different than the app, is very different than the app land cover protocol, because the app protocol is designed to be able to be done without any external equipment. So you should, be out doing a hike or somewhere, where you don't have a big tape measure with you. You don't have the instruments with you to do a full Globe land cover assessment. But you should be able to just document what you see. And so it's kind of like the light version of Globe land cover. The Globe land cover data entry is different. It assumes that you have the tape measure, that you have the densitometer instrument, and you're able to make the actual measurement, and it has the field set up for that. So there is a little different, and it does require additional training. So it may not be visible to you in the app if you don't have that training. Hopefully that clarifies. Any other questions?
I think something else to just demonstrate quickly is the examples that Marley showed were observations that had been classified. So gone through those steps, but just wanting to point out that this is an example of an observation where the person did not put in that classification information. So it adds, instead of having the classification down below like we saw before, it has a link where you can actually go and learn more about how to do that, about how to classify data. So that's hopefully a little bit of a prod that maybe people will start doing more classification because they see, oh, it's blank there. I want information in my table there. I guess I need to go through the other steps and do the classification. And this one also has an example of field notes there in this particular observation that's useful. But then you can see as you scroll down, here's the land cover classification for MODIS, and then further down the satellite imagery. And then again, to demonstrate what Marley showed, if I click on that, that will take me into NASA Worldview there. And you can see this was a little bit of some clouds there in this particular observation.
You know, that reminds me of something else, Kristen, worth pointing out
Okay.
is, yeah, if you don't mind showing your screen one more time, what you were just showing. The image is centered on your location. So we don't have a dot there or anything like that. You don't want to cover it up, but you are in the middle of that image.
Yeah, and I think that's true here too.
Yes.
Yeah, the observation, you are standing right in the middle there, and also here you can imagine being right in the middle there. And actually, just as another example, this was one when I was looking for examples. Oh no, it was this one, I guess. This was one that I think is interesting. So here's one where you can see the land cover classification is very much urban, right? But if you look at the photo, there's a little park and some trees. So, you know, this ground observation that somebody took, I think this one was from Mexico maybe, but is really demonstrating why some of these ground observations are valuable, because looking at the MODIS classification, you would think it was just all completely built up, but we can see from the ground photo and the classification in this case that they've identified that there are some trees, there's a little park in there. So I think that shows why these ground photos can be helpful. Right. And that previous one that was showing some of that flooding as well, I think also demonstrates that's something that's not necessarily going to be easily visible on the satellite, but those field notes and the ground photos add that additional detail.
Right. We were working with a scientist a couple of years ago who was looking at paved over land underneath in like suburban forests. So from a satellite perspective, it looks like forest, but you can't tell that underneath the trees, it's not pervious ground, it's impervious, it's roads, it's pavement, it's houses. And that's why those ground-based photos are really helpful to go under the trees. There are other satellites that, you know, can get at some of that, but these visible light satellites don't. So it's very interesting that your perspective can really add useful things to that interpretation of the satellite data. Any other questions? Let's see.
And I guess one thing that people might wonder about is it says that we've got overpass information for Landsat 8 and Landsat 9, but we don't distinguish in the table because the layer in Worldview is combined. So you are getting an image from one of the two, but it was I think much more, I think we looked at it, it's much more complicated to figure out which one it was coming from. So, and the Worldview layer is both together. So that's why you see the overpasses for Landsat 8 and 9 separately, but the layer in Worldview is just Landsat 8 and 9 both together.
Right.
And am I correct, Kristen, that whether it's Landsat 8 or Landsat 9, it's which satellite most recently passed? So it's getting the one that's closest to whenever you actually took the observation.
Right. Yeah, and that does, you can see the date. So for example, this observation was taken on August 23rd, and you can see that our two satellite for Landsat 8 or 9, it was on August 19th, whereas for Sentinel-2A or 2B, it was August 17th. So, you know, slightly different times, a few days apart. Again, that being exact match time frame is not quite as essential for land cover as it is for clouds, just because the land just doesn't most of the time does not change that quickly.
Right. But the clouds do change. And actually that's a useful thing to remember if you're trying to figure out what's on the ground, knowing the cloud shadows, knowing what cloud conditions are when you're taking that land cover observation is a really useful thing. So having them taken at the same time does help. Or you can also just take a cloud observations that's coincident, and that's helpful too. All right. Any last questions? All right. So we, our next Globe Observer Connect, we are still working on the date. It will likely be October 16th or the 23rd, depending on the availability of the folks we want to bring in. But we are going to be focusing on another new feature in Globe Observer called Practice Mode. And we think that's a really useful tool for a lot of reasons. And we want to spend some time talking about it, how it works and how you might use it. So we'll focus on that next time. So watch our website, observer.globe.gov/go-connect, and we'll get that information posted as soon as we finalize the details. All right, and I see one more question in the chat. I'd be happy to hang around and answer that. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. If you have to leave, we are at the end of our scheduled time. Thank you. So what will the use of land cover matching? So yeah, we match it to Worldview because that's a place that serves out satellite data in a number of ways, and you can go get lots of other satellite data from there. So once you're over there, you can you can look at your Landsat or your Sentinel-2 layer, and you can add in other things, which is really useful. You can do a lot of exploring of the data in there. So that's part of why we link to that. For scientists, we didn't mention this, but we will be publishing the observations. We do this for clouds now, the observations with a link to the co-located satellite data so that a scientist can come along and has easy access to the aligned data. And then I think that will expand the potential application of globe and land cover. What kind of land can be used for land cover observations? Any land and all land. As long as you're safe taking the observation, don't put yourself in danger, please, but any land is great. And what time? Any time that you can see the land clearly is great. As I've been saying, during a satellite overpass is helpful, but really anytime you are available to take an observation is the perfect time to take one.
And I will say we do have a few land cover observations that have been taken from like kayak or someone in a boat on water. That is still land cover. So yeah, again, be safe. Don't tip your kayak over. But you can be on land or water if you're in a boat of some sort.
And Marale brings up another point in the chat. Thank you so much, Marale. Is make sure you have permission to be on that land. It's not somebody's private farm or military base or something like that, right? You want to make sure you have permission to be there and to be taking photos and that it's safe. Any last questions? Well, thanks again for joining us. We hope you enjoy getting your land cover matches in your email. I know I am, and I'm just thrilled that we're able to bring this to you now. Thank you so much for being with us today. Bye.